Hello and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Gracia and I have got a really exciting Get in Tune and I gotta wish I can fix my camera. Uh, this place looks terrible today. Um, the Velcro isn't working too well tonight on that. There we go. Um, so anyway, I got a great show because those who know me know I love animation. I am an animator. I haven't done it in a while professionally, but I love animation. I love to animate. It's like one of my all-time favorite things to do, and it really is like my happy place. And I, follow a lot of people on Instagram, a lot of people. And for a while, I've been following this person, and I'm loving her posts. She's worked on a bunch of cool stuff. Um, we're going to talk about a lot of things, and I'm wasting time getting around because I'm trying to remember how to pronounce her last name properly. So let me bring her on, and I'm going to butcher her last name, and I apologize in advance. But let's get on. I'm going to read this again. Tina Nawrocki. Did I
Close.
do it? Close.
Almost.
Can you say it for the audience so that
Sure. My name is Tina Nawrocki.
Nawrocki. Okay. I didn't do it right at the second time, but I know. We already got someone watching, Joe Ryan. He says, "Hey, fellow creator, really look forward to this interview."
Oh,
So
cool.
I am too, Joe. Just so you know, Joe Ryan, he is an illustrator. He's a regular watcher of the show, but I know him in real life, and he's a graduate of the Kubert School. He's working on his own comics and doing a lot of cool projects and stuff. So, and
Oh,
I
great.
apologize in advance if you keep seeing me going towards my camera. I have my camera is attached to a spot with Velcro, and sometimes it leans, and I'm not going to try to always fix my stuff. But first of all, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And I've been looking forward to talking with you. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your Instagram stuff, which, by the way, we have a link. Well, we have her account you can follow. Let me bring it up. So on Instagram, it's her
Mhm.
name, Art. I'm not going to try. I'm
It's
sorry.
fine. It
I,
can
was,
take years,
I,
years
I
of practice.
I do feel like my camera though is syncing, right?
It is sinking. Yeah,
It
very
that's the
slowly.
weirdest thing. Let me push that on and see what happens. So yeah, I don't know. I've been following you now for I don't know how many months now. I don't I think I found you in 2021. So it's been a while. Um, and you post a lot of different things. But a lot of it was this like what really hooked me was when you would post like your retro 1930s 40s style animation, which I am such a big fan of. um, and there's a few artists on Instagram that I follow that draw in that style, and every time like I see your stuff, that because sometimes due to the algorithm I don't always see everybody's stuff and I have to go look. I'm loving what you're posting.
Oh, thank you.
um and and just out of curiosity, how long have you been animating professionally now?
Well, professionally, it's 16 years, but I
Okay.
started animating 20 years ago.
Okay. I won't ask your age and how
It's
how
okay.
long.
I'm a witch.
Yeah.
People always get surprised when I say that. But also, I started. I'm an immigrant, and
Mhm.
as a child of immigrant parents, we didn't have a lot, I guess, of funds growing up. So we were encouraged very young to try and make our own money, to support different dreams, like for example traveling or going to college. So we were working very early on, and so I started working as an artist at age 12. And
Wow.
I had my first solo exhibition at age 14. I
Nice.
started working at a studio at age 16. I just didn't tell them how old I was. I just gave them a CV and a portfolio, and they hired me. And then later, we found out I was 16.
Wow.
And then I took a 3 year program, college program, and then I started working in the video game industry right after that. So
Interesting.
I was really early to hit the ground, so to speak.
Oh, that's great. I thought I started early. I started working at 18 professionally, but you had me beat there. You know.
Yeah.
so, um, so okay, you talked, basically your work has been art your whole life, which is fantastic.
I
What
knew early on that that's what I wanted to do, so that's great.
Yeah, I think most people in the creative field kind of have an idea early on that, like I knew when I was a little kid, I wanted to either animate or draw comics. That was it. I love newspaper strips. It was be a syndicated cartoonist or animate, you know, funny cartoons. That was like my dreams. Um, and and I want to talk about your background. Like, since you started like really early, what got you into art? What kind of art were you doing, and when did it kind of turn into animation for you?
So that's really interesting because I was completely the opposite of you when it comes to knowing that cartooning is the way I want to go. I
Mm-hmm.
started with like a love for realism. For my mom had to write a special permission so I could go do model drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I started painting in oil paints,
Oh
and
wow.
my biggest obsession was painting horses because I was a little girl and I wanted to ride horses, but we couldn't afford it. So I started painting them in order to peddle my art and
Mm-hmm.
and get some money so then I could buy like a few lessons and I would peddle my art and so on. And I've pulled up some old paintings if you want to
Oh
see the
sure,
beginning.
absolutely.
The first stuff that I did was just horses. And it was, I started by doing like portraits. So this one I painted when I was, I think, 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, so all traditional oil paints, and then this was I was
Wow.
12 when I did this one.
Oh my God.
So that's another fun one, and I have and then I progressed kind of. I was also a huge tomboy, which
Mm.
doesn't show right now, but I was extremely into sword fighting. I loved warriors. I
Yeah.
loved I loved anything that was like I learned how to do archery off of horseback. Like I wanted to do super badass things. So then I slowly progressed from just painting horses to painting like warriors and people as well.
Yeah.
So this one I think I was 14 or 15 when I painted
Holy
it.
crap. I'm sorry to
and
talk like that, but damn.
and then I started painting portraiture because the people that I were painting their horses. I'm sorry, my dog is going crazy in the background. It's
No
a nice
worries.
little cameo from him. So I started painting portraiture because people wanted to have their painting of their horse, and then they wanted to have themselves with their horse.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that slowly progressed, and then I did portraiture art for a while. I painted, I don't know if you know the beer Molson. It's very popular in Canada.
Not sure I'm familiar with that.
It's a very Canadian beer, and
Okay.
the family obviously is very rich, and I painted their family portrait.
Wow.
So I did that. And then what was really funny is I didn't go to school for animation. I did illustration and design as a
Mm.
program,
Yeah.
which is it's not like in the U.S. It's very kind of affordable. I guess not not a community college. It's a college certificate. It's not a degree. Um,
Okay.
it's Canada education system, especially in Quebec, where I grew up, was very affordable, and
Mm.
they're called tech programs. So they're meant
Yeah.
to not go and do a PhD. They want you out in the field working as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I studied illustration and design, and that program had one teeny tiny animation course in it. Um, and I loved acting as well. I loved theater. I loved comedy. Like I would do stand up and I would do like improv and stuff like that as a teenager. I loved it. And
Mm.
then I took an animation class and suddenly I was like, oh my god, this is acting and drawing at the same time. And
Yeah.
so it was love, and that's how I started, which is really weird because I was completely the opposite before, very realistic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, because your styles obviously are so different from the realism to what you're doing, and like it because what you're describing, it's hysterical because I hated realism as a kid. I to this day I don't like to draw realistically. Um, horses are the hardest thing I've ever had to draw in my life.
They're not easy, and
No,
so
they're not. And you getting them at what, 12, 13 in that picture?
yeah.
I'm like super impressed at that. It's
What was really funny is recently, like about a year ago, I was hired on a small little trailer
mhm.
for clients in Kuwait, and one of the shots had a horse in it, and like the guy sent me little like anatomy pictures of what a horse is like and stuff, and I'm like, oh honey, like I don't need any of that, but thank you, that's
Yeah,
cute.
yeah.
So
It's funny because I always tell people I studied. I had a comic class I took under Tom Gill. Tom Gill, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but back in like the 50s, he drew all the Western comic books like The Lone Ranger and Bonanza and all those things. And he was a master horse artist, and I never learned to draw horses from him.
oh,
So
you
to
should
the,
have. That's too
I wish I did. I never asked. I never
bad.
asked. I was like, "Can you teach me how to draw a horse?" They are to me, they are the most difficult things. And I just did a project, which I could announce technically in a couple of weeks, but I had to draw a horse in one of the pictures, and I was like, "Oh my god, what am I gonna do?" And luckily, my style is very simplistic in what I was doing. It's very like think of like the Bruce Timm Batman the Animated Series style. So I just
Yeah.
started looking up horses of how Bruce Timm's, that
And then
style of horse.
you
And I'm
stylize
just like,
them.
I
Yeah.
stylized it very similar, and I'm like, okay, I got the horse. I'm okay. I could do it. But I spent 2 weeks drawing horses and just just like practicing nothing but horses for 2 weeks, and they still stunk.
It's not an easy animal, but I think what's
No.
really nice because I spent my youth drawing specifically
Mhm.
horses over and over again. Now drawing any other type of animal is pretty easy because like you can extrapolate anatomy very quickly and so
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really great experience. And what's funny is because I went to school, very young, and then I started
Mhm.
working very young, and I
Yeah.
went back to school as a mature student in my late 20s. And
Okay.
it was funny because again, I have a baby face. So at first I flew under the radar. Like people thought
Mhm.
I was 18, but I'm not, So, and one project we had to draw a stagecoach, like a Western stagecoach.
Yeah.
And like I again like looked at like how it's built, trying to, and I'm terrible at anything machine like. So I was like,
Okay.
oh my god, and it took me forever. And then it was had to be drawn by 6 horses, like it's a
Yeah, it's being pulled.
all my peers were like freaking out about drawing the horses. I'm like, oh, thank God. And I just like, there we
That's
go.
funny.
That part was easy. The rest was, really annoying. So,
Yeah. And I just wanted to comment because you said you did all these things, stand-up comedy. I actually wrote stand-up stuff, but I never
oh, lovely.
performed it because I was too shy to perform stand-up. And then I became an educator and I taught, and I was like, my shyness is over, but I had no interest. And you mentioned you love to act and you love theater. This is why I love animation because deep down I feel like I'm an actor inside, I'm a performer, but I can't perform when people are watching me.
Yeah. So that's
But
perfect job.
this guy who you might have been seeing in the back, this is something I use with kids, is my little puppet there.
Oh,
So I can't even get him with because everything's so crooked right now, and he's a little off centered. But I have this guy, but I can perform when I'm behind something and no one's seeing me, and I'm off,
yeah.
onto the side. So it's very very
Whereas
interesting.
I'm totally okay on on stage. I like making
Mhm.
people laugh, and
Yeah,
after the popularity of Cuphead, which is what I'm best known for,
yeah,
I got invited to a lot of festivals around the world. This was pre-pandemic,
yes,
and yeah, and it was so funny to me, funny and like I could I couldn't relate, but it was interesting to see like how people who work in the video game industry or work in film and they had to go up in front of a crowd and give a talk. And most people, most artists are introverts. And
yeah,
I'm an introvert as well, but I'm like really comfortable on stage. And so it was really fun to watch everybody, get over those nerves. Whereas I was like, yay,
yeah,
hi
yeah.
everybody,
Well,
and
that's the thing. I have I have friends who are all in all forms of art. Obviously I have puppet friends. I have all this stuff. I feel if you're a performer, like someone who's an actor or someone who does puppetry or whatever, when you have the light on you, you go and you shine. But when you're someone more like me, who's more in their head and always likes to be behind the scenes and doesn't like to be on camera, although I've been doing this for over a year now, we, we we can talk, but we're just like we're the quiet ones, and
Yeah.
we don't all of a sudden burst out and hey, look at me here. No, no, no. It's more like, hi, how you doing? We're still shy and quiet. I feel most people I know art wise are like that.
Yeah,
You know.
I think that's why I thought animation was so great for me, because I love the theater scene. Like for me,
Yeah.
like improv and theater was a huge love of mine. And for a
Mm.
long time, I knew I was really good at drawing, but I really loved performing. And I was wondering, like, oh, like maybe I should try and be, a theater actress, or I should try and do comedy.
Mm.
But then, once I discovered animation, like I could do all of that and draw at the same
Yeah.
time.
Now, when you took this class, was it a traditional computer? What was it?
It was a very nice program. It had like, this was a long time ago, so we still learned like ancient airbrush as well. Like, we learned that.
Yeah.
But like Photoshop was just starting out, so we actually like had a Photoshop class.
Mm.
We did AutoCAD, which was hilarious.
I
The
remember that.
old one.
Yep.
But my animation teacher, his name was Jeff Carley. He was working in video games at the time, and he did a 2D animation course for illustration design, which was, first the bouncing ball and all that kind
Yep.
of good stuff, and it was on paper, so we got to animate on paper. But then he showed us Adobe Flash at the time. Like it was actually Macromedia Flash still.
Oh, that's where I started with it. That's where.
So he showed us that as a software, like that we can try 2D animation with. Um, I think Toon Boom didn't exist yet. Like it's just started when I started working. So
Yeah,
I think
Toon
Toon Boom
Boom.
wasn't around, or it was
I
maybe in its infancy, because it was not in school. And then
Yeah,
we learned like one 3D software. We learned 3ds Max, but
I
we
knew
did very
that.
little animation. It was just like to show how to do like a model and rigging and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So it was that one tiny little 2D class that really got me excited,
yeah.
and I was so into it that my first job out of school was basically that same professor, Jeff Carley. He recommended me to a video game studio, and I got my first job in games. And it was one of those jobs where this was like pre smartphones and pre tablets, and there was this like glory age of online portals, like for kids, like little worlds online where they can play a bunch of different video games. So I did stuff for
Mm.
National Geographic Kids and like PBS Kids and a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff like that. And we did some stuff for Hanna-Barbera. We did some
Mm.
stuff for we did like Flintstones games, and, like little things like that. So
That's
that was
awesome.
my beginnings in the
Yeah.
industry.
I probably played the Flintstone games. I'm not gonna lie. If they were online, I'm a huge people don't realize this. I'm a huge Hanna Barbera fan. Um, so much that I wish I could turn my camera on. I'm so nervous. But on the side, I've got 4 shelves devoted to Hanna Barbera figures, pops, whatever they are, just because I love it so much.
Oh,
I've got a print of what was it, the Hanna Barbera's, was it the Super? I forget what they call it, the Super Show or whatever, where all the heroes were together. And even though it technically isn't Hanna Barbera, right? Okay, this I'll show. I'll take
okay,
it
go for it.
down. Right in front of me, that I look at every day while I'm animating, is the dance
Oh,
cycle
yay! I
to
loved
Red
her.
Hot. Yeah.
Red
So
Hot Riding Hood.
yeah.
Yeah,
So like if you look closely, it's literally her dance cycle behind her.
that's amazing.
That
That's
I
so
love.
cool.
And then since I have the camera off, there's that Hanna Barbera print I was talking about right
Sweet.
there, and then that's the 4 shelves. Mostly pop, because Hanna Barbera stuff's hard to find. But they are my favorite. I said when I was a kid, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It was because of the McGilla Gorilla show. It was in
Oh,
reruns, but
really?
I'm not old enough for the original run of it. But I watched it in reruns, and Ricochet Rabbit was like my all time favorite character as a kid. So
That's
that's
great,
when.
because we, as a family, we loved all the Disney movies. We'd go like
Same here.
as a family to see them. Like I remember when Aladdin came out, and we were all super excited about it. And so I always loved animation, but
Yeah,
I never considered it as a career. I guess because I was so into realism
yeah.
as a kid, that I didn't consider it as a career till I was, in college, and then it suddenly dawned on me. And then, all that love for animation throughout the years, it kind of made sense
Mhm.
in retrospect. But at the very beginning, it was definitely just like I enjoyed it, but I never thought that that's what's gonna be, my path in the end.
Yeah. So let me. You said you were the Disney family. You guys went to the theaters, saw the Disney movies. I actually have a story about how I sprained my ankle watching The Lion King, but I'll share that another
Sure.
time. But what was I gonna? What other animations, like when you're like, oh, this is going to be where I'm going? Did you start like researching and rewatching and like what was it that was like, oh my god, and you
I
started?
think it was Miyazaki films because
Okay.
I got introduced to that a bit later on. I
Mhm.
guess basically when I was in college because I
Yeah.
had some new friends who were huge fans of it, and
Mhm.
so I didn't watch like Totoro as a kid. I watched it as a teenager,
Yeah.
or like young adult, I would say. And so like to me that was because I had known like anime on TV. Like I think there was like Sailor Moon and Naruto and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was never impressed by the animation. Like I liked the content and I enjoyed it, but I wasn't just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Whereas Miyazaki's work and like Studio Ghibli's work is just like
It's
it's so mind-boggling. Like
yeah.
everything, the backgrounds, like the quality of animation. So to me, that was absolutely incredible. And then just hanging around like animation nerds, I got introduced to more things that I didn't know about, like Samurai Jack. And then
That's
when I was in college, that's when Avatar: The Last Airbender came out on
okay.
TV. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice like mix of Western culture meets, like that anime style.
Yeah.
But I think the movies that like inspired me, like I love that like early like Nine Old Men era of Disney. Like
Yeah.
that's my jam. Like
Same here.
Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, like and Robin Hood is our Christmas movie. Like as a
Oh,
family,
really?
we watch it every single year. And my sister's getting married this year, and
Mhm.
her song walking down the aisle is like do 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 do
That is
do
awesome.
do do do. Like so, that's her song that she's gonna play when to walk down the aisle
Oh,
to.
that
I think
that
it's
is
amazing.
that is awesome. I'm a huge Disney guy, but like you were mentioning the older stuff. Now I've said this about shorts, and I never knocking Disney, but I always found their older stuff not to be really funny, but just illustrated beautifully.
Yes.
Very, very few things made me laugh, and I'll tell you, like some of my favorites. I don't know, Lambert the Sheepish Lion. Love
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes. I know.
Anything that's Humphrey Bear.
Mhm.
Humphrey might be, I think, the funniest character they ever did. But their work, just the gorgeousness of, and I mean, listen, the stuff had humor. You chuckled, but it wasn't like Looney Tunes where you're cracking up nonstop
Yes.
laughing.
Like,
It
but
was,
I think that's they definitely developed a certain style and
yeah,
stuck to it.
yeah,
Whereas, the Looney Tunes like hit the ground running in a different era, right? So I think there was a lot of history and baggage with, for example, the way they created shorts.
yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see also because so for example, like I liked all these styles of animation, but I never was a fan of the 1930s until
Hmm.
I got hired to work on Cuphead, and then
Okay,
suddenly I had to animate in that style. So I was aware of Betty Boop, I was aware of Popeye, but it's not something that I like sought after.
okay,
And now it's been like I was for 5 years watching every single 1930s short that ever existed.
yeah,
So now the style is extremely dear to my heart just because of that. But it wasn't something that I was originally drawn to. So it's really funny because it's what I'm known for. And
yeah,
people love it. And they're like, oh, did you always love it? I'm like, no, I got hired to do Cuphead. And that's
yeah.
when that kind of journey with the 1930s began. So, as I said, like my favorite moment in animation is like the Nine Old Men, with
Yes.
like when it comes to Western animation.
Mhm.
So it's funny that I'm known for the 30s, which is a little bit earlier than
No,
that.
hey, listen, you do great stuff. You sent me some work that hopefully I can show. I know you can have it all set up on your computer. Um, but But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this stuff and everything I've seen. I mean, we're going to talk about some of your projects, but you've worked on Cuphead, the video game, by the way, not the show, just so people
Yes.
know. Um, you have worked on Green Eggs and Ham. You have Jasper J. Pumpkinhead.
Yes.
And you have, what is this?
Space
This
Jam.
Space Jam. Yeah, I don't think, do I have anything Space Jam from you here?
I can show it on my
Okay.
end if you want to see
And
anything
I
from
was looking at this other one. What's it? Lunafon Tales of the Moon Oak.
Yes, so
Yeah.
some of them are independent projects, which is
Hmm.
actually my favorite things to work on. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed working on Space Jam. I really
Yeah.
loved working for a big studio on Green Eggs and Ham. But for
Mhm.
some reason, I just love the passion that small independent studios and small independent projects like bring out in people.
Yeah.
Because then it's not like there's none of this like giant corporate level that's stifling the artist. You know what I mean? There's none of this bureaucracy. It's usually just a small ragtag team of people who are in love with something and want it to be the best that it can be. And I think that's why Cuphead was such a success, because it was made by people who really really just loved what they were doing and were
Hmm.
super super excited about it. And I think that was the magic. And
Hmm.
so Lunathon Tales of the Moon Oak is for a small Welsh studio in Wales, in the UK. And it was so lovely to work. Ella at Drake House is the studio. I worked with her, and she was so passionate about her project. And the main character, Looney from Lunathon, is just very dainty and very girly. And I haven't animated many characters like that, so it was really nice to do that for a bit. And then the other short that I'm super excited about for Brian Kessinger, which I am sure you've heard of him. Like, people might not know the name, but you've seen his work.
Okay.
He worked for Disney.
Hmm.
I think he was the youngest animator in history to be hired by Disney. But he's a character designer. He now works, I think, for Lucasfilms.
Okay.
He did this comic that got very popular, so I'm sure you know it. It's called Little Kylo Ren. He's a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, it was a book, right? A little.
Yeah, well,
I
it's a
think.
comic, and
Yeah.
it got turned into a book, and it's
Okay.
basically, it looks like Calvin and Hobbes style.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's little Kylo Ren,
Yeah.
doing little like Calvin and Hobbes things, and it's
Yeah.
hilarious. And so that's Brian Kessinger, and he was
Okay.
my director on this short, and it was just another like little pet project of his. Something that he really wanted to do. He wanted to direct a short. So he did all the storyboards, but there was another character designer that the character design. I forget his name. I'm so sorry. But then I got to animate the entire short on paper. And one of the reasons that they wanted it to be completely hand drawn and on paper was that I think there's going to be hopefully like a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter to have the short finished, because right now all the rough animation's done, but it needs to go to cleanup, it needs to be colored, all the backgrounds need to be painted, then there's music and all that stuff. And so my original drawings are going to be backer rewards, so that if
That's
anybody
awesome.
wants to back the project, they can get an original animation drawing from it. So that's great.
So let me ask you: is most of your animation work on paper first, or you do digital? How do you work?
So Cuphead was completely done on paper,
Well,
all
that
of
yeah, that
it.
I know.
So the original game as well as DLC, which I worked on for 2 years. For the original Cuphead, I counted. I drew something like 9,300 something drawings for it on paper. So it was a lot of stacks of paper.
Yeah.
And then Brian Kessinger's short was also on paper, but obviously, for just for time, I guess. Sometimes I work also digitally. I have a Cintiq, and Green Eggs and Ham, for example, was done in Toon Boom Harmony. Same thing for Space Jam: A New Legacy was done in Toon Boom Harmony. And I animated Lunathon as well on the computer, but with a different software called TVPaint, which is my favorite. I really, really love that
You know,
software.
it's funny. I hate to interrupt, but most people I talk to who are animators love TV Paint, but companies use Harmony,
Mm,
so you have to what?
American companies,
American.
European
Okay.
companies, all use TVPaint.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Every time I talk to someone who I know who does animation, like character animation and stuff, they're in Harmony. They're always talking about Harmony.
Yeah, well, so
Um,
it's a very European. So the software is based in France. It was developed
mhm,
by French people,
yeah,
specifically for 2D animators and to give that very hand-drawn look. What's
yeah.
really interesting about it is that you can like select paper textures and like I don't know if you know the movie Ernest et Célestine.
Can you say it again?
Ernest et Célestine, or Ernest and Celestine in English. It's a
I'm
French
not.
film.
I'd have to see the artwork on it.
It's like a big bear and a small mouse, and they're like friends. And it's very watercolory, very illustrative,
That sounds very familiar to me.
and it's a beautiful film. And that was
Yeah.
all done in TVPaint, and it looks like watercolor. It's absolutely gorgeous.
That you know what? I have looked at TV Paint. I don't know how many times to purchase. I just can't afford it right now.
It's
Every time.
what's interesting though is that it is expensive to go like get go, but then
Mhm.
you own it for life. You know, like
No, I
it's
know that's the thing. It's a one-time purchase, right?
yeah, it's
And
not like Harmony where you have to like you're being drained monthly, right? Like
but
that is you buy it off the bat once and it's yours forever, and no more, no more no more trying to get
yeah,
your software paid for.
because
So that's good.
because I at some point I'm gonna get back into animation at least just for myself.
You
And,
should.
and oh no, I love it. It's I've just haven't had the schedule to sit down. I have a story. I don't mind. I've shared this on the air, so I don't mind. I like to do parody stuff, humor stuff, very inspired by Hanna-Barbera and like old Looney Tunes. And I have a Frankenstein parody.
Nice.
And it's called Frankenfizz, about a guy who creates a giant soda monster. And I've been wanting to animate this for a while. I actually have a voice actor, and he's doing sounds, he's doing everything. It's all, but I just haven't had a chance to sit down. And I don't really have anything right now but Photoshop to really animate, which I can do. But I'm
Yeah.
like, one day I want to get a much better software. I want to start animating again. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it is like one of my happy places
Yeah, and
to
so
be.
I think TV Paint is a good option for you to look at because there's two kind of steps to TV Paint. You could get
Yeah.
the regular, and then you could get Pro. And so regular is very robust, I would say, and that's what I
Mhm.
started out with. It's like
Yeah.
I think it's 700 euro or
Okay.
500 euro.
Yeah.
So that translates to roughly 700 US dollars. But then again, like you divide that by X amount of months that you're going to use it, and then it ends up being worth it if you use it for, a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Pro is nice because it gives you kind of a lot more of those like Photoshop type abilities. Like, you can change your layers to multiply, you can do overlay, like you can have your
Yeah.
whole animations and all these different type of layers with
Yeah. Yeah.
different kind of effects on them. So it's really cool. I had the wonderful kind of opportunity where I bought the basic TV Paint, and then I
Mhm.
had some European clients, and one of them was like, "Oh, we use TV Paint." I'm like, "Oh, great! I have the basic software. I can."
Mhm.
They're like, "Oh, you don't have Pro?" I'm like, "No, I just couldn't afford it yet." And they're like, "Oh, we'll buy you Pro." Like,
Oh, that's awesome.
so they bought it for me, and now I own it forever, and that made me so happy.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's all. I love when things like that happen. That was one of the things I miss about like the '90s. Now everything is subscription based with Adobe, but back then I could put everything on a zip drive and walk out of it. That's how I had to learn After Effects. One of my clients is like, "Do you know After Effects?" I said, "No, I haven't had a chance to use it because I was still in college. I haven't had the class
yeah,
yet." He was like, "Here, take it home and go learn." I had to learn it in a weekend so I could do stuff on the job on Monday. He gave it to me on a disc on Friday.
yeah, yeah. The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days when you can get any software. This is like 95, I think, 96
Yeah,
maybe.
that was still my reality for a big chunk of my career. So yeah,
Yeah,
but it's a great software. So if you do get the chance, I would
yeah.
highly recommend it. What I like about it is unlike Toon Boom, which I
Mhm.
also don't mind. It's a very nice software. But unlike Toon Boom, which is still vector based, even though they try and emulate the pencil, it's vectors.
Yeah.
And I find vectors change your line, even if it's ever so slightly. They
Yes.
always change your line. And already I find doing digital work, regardless, changes your line versus doing it on paper.
Mhm.
So like I find TV Paint is nicer because it's pixel based. So it is like animating in Photoshop, but a better, animation software.
Yeah, yeah.
So it has that, I don't know, it's more tactile. It has like, to me, it feels more truer to what you would have on paper, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And it had, like I said, it's something I've been looking at on and off for years. Um, I'd like to start before the end of this year animating again. And
Speaking of Jasper, though, let me show
yeah, I
you.
was gonna,
Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah, bring
show
us.
a scene from it. So most of the scenes, of course, I cannot share because it's a short, so like you can't
Yeah,
give away too much. But I have a few scenes that Brian has allowed me to share, so I can share a few of them. So this is
okay.
one of my favorites. Jasper is a little scarecrow, and he has a head for a pumpkin. And he just fell flat on his face, and these little bats are making fun of him. So I really like this shot. It makes me really happy.
This is great.
So again, this is all done on paper. You can really see the texture of a paper going back,
Yeah.
and I use a brother scanner
Mhm.
when I'm scanning my stuff, and I'll show. I think I get one more scene from Jasper. Yeah, this is the one where I'll show you the scene before and after my favorite scene. So this is
Mhm.
right when he's going to fall flat on his face, which is always fun. I love animating falls.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Here he is, and then he
Oh,
falls.
I
A
like that.
little
I gotta say, in the last one that you showed, I really love the rotation. That is so hard to do so
of his head,
smoothly.
yeah.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
And what's funny is it goes all the way, 360 around because he's a scarecrow, so you can do
Yeah.
that without snapping his neck. So
No, I
so
love it. I love this.
there's this one, and then the next shot after that is where the bats went away and they made fun of him, and now he's all sad. And so I will share that one to show you guys a few little tidbits of Jasper J. Pumpkinhead. I really hope I can't wait to see this in color and like with the final line and all that kind of stuff. So we'll
Oh,
see.
that's great.
Oh, this one's a little bit laggy, but it's okay. You
No,
can see you can see the basic movement of
it's
it.
running smooth on my end here, so it
Okay,
might be
good. On,
looking
on mine, it's
lagging on.
lagging. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No.
so that's Jasper. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great project. Brian Kessinger again owns the IP, and he is on Twitter and all the things, and you can find him and follow
I'm
him if you want updates about Brian.
I'm
So
definitely gonna have to look up his stuff because you said this is gonna
big
be like a
fan. There you go. Somebody
yeah.
knows Brian
Yeah.
Kessinger.
Joe Ryan there. So if it's you said this is going to like on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, it's going to a
Yeah, it's
crowdfunding.
gonna. So Brian is like a master of
Hmm.
crowd-funded things. He's done so many amazing projects. Like
Hmm.
he did. He loves Inktober, and actually, I think Jasper J. Pumpkinhead was like an Inktober character to begin with, where he
Really?
just did an illustration of Jasper every day of the month for 31 days, and then it was published as a little book. But he also did another character, a little kind of skeleton guy, and he finds a magic banjo that is haunted, and then he
Oh
did a
wow.
Kickstarter to actually build the banjo, like, and have a beautiful, like, bespoke, gorgeous banjo. And of course, it's
Wow.
a limited edition, and it's the ghost banjo from the comic.
That's
And yeah,
awesome.
and it got funded, and people got their like beautiful original banjos. So it's really neat.
I'm gonna have to reach out to him when his crowdfunding goes and bring him on the show and talk about all this stuff.
Absolutely.
And you'd be welcome back too. Totally, get the whole
Thank you.
team involved on. Um, so yeah, okay. So you animate a lot on paper. You also animate digitally. We talked about the software you're using. You love TVPaint over over Toon Boom, which I find a lot of people saying Toon Boom for Harmony for you guys who've never used it. I know the software. I just don't own it right now. Um, it's a big learning curve. Big learning curve. That one's a little bit of a pain to do.
Yeah, and
Um,
then people love it. I'm not
mm,
hating on it whatsoever,
yeah.
but I do, having worked with both extensively, I
Mm,
have to give a slight preference to
yeah.
TVPaint.
Yeah. Joe saying loving the show tonight. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Um, can we look at let's see if I can pull it up first because like I said I have a few issues. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to because of the movie. But can we look at some of the green eggs and ham? I'm going to save Cuphead for last because that's kind of the biggest thing you're known for. Let's save it.
Sure.
But I gotta say when I saw the green eggs and ham stuff, I got excited. First of all, I'm a big Dr. Seuss guy. Love
Oh,
Dr.
so
Seuss.
good.
I was working with some kids in March, and they do the Dr. Seuss week in schools because it's his birthday and whatnot. I was teaching them how to draw Dr. Seuss characters, but I was telling them a story, and you guys, this is completely true. When I was like in 8th grade or so, I used to go to the library, the school library, and pull out like Dr. Seuss books, and people would make fun of me, but I just loved his style so much. I just used to copy his work like crazy. I loved looking at his line work.
But it's so, I don't know, it's so distinct, right? And
Mhm.
it's to me one of, my takeaways is the Grinch, the animated one, like from exactly from like I think Tex Avery. No,
Chuck Jones.
Chuck Jones was the
Chuck
one
Jones, yeah.
who like directed it, and it was
Mhm.
just absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
so like, and of course I grew up with the books, so
Mhm.
I was so excited that they did like a new Dr. Seuss thing, but
Mhm.
not 3D. Like I was
Yeah.
just so happy it was 2D. And
Mhm.
then they got so many talented traditional 2D animators to work on it, and it was an absolute joy. And for me, it was such an honor because one of my mentors, Blair Kitchen, he's an amazing. He was an amazing traditional 2D animator, and he
Mhm.
worked on Curious George, The Future, and did a lot of Canadian things.
Mhm.
And Blair was director here in Toronto for Yowza Animation. And I congratulated him when I heard that he was doing Green Eggs and Ham, and he says, "Great, you want to do some scenes?" And so that's how I got the job. Unfortunately, Blair passed away during
Oh.
production, which was really rough for everybody because like
Mhm.
his memorial was like a rock star. Like there was
Mhm.
like people were parked illegally everywhere. It was just like you
Wow.
could get in to say goodbye to him because there was so many. He was a teacher, a mentor, an amazing father, and just a wonderful guy. And I remember I was like he died over the Christmas holidays, and so I came
Mhm.
back and found out that he had
Oh.
passed away. And I still had some scenes left with his drawings in them, and it was so precious to me because he did some
Mhm.
drawovers, he gave me some comments,
Yeah.
and those few scenes with his last drawings in them, it took me a long time to finish, but I feel
Mhm.
like he deserves a shout out because he was my director for a huge chunk of it, and I really wished that Warner Brothers for episode 2, which was the last episode that he directed, that they would
Mhm.
have like given him in memory of, but they didn't. So I just want to tell everybody that Blair was an absolutely amazing director, an amazing guy, an amazing animator. So yeah, so some of his shots I'm going to show you. It was Blair
Okay.
who was my director, and he was an amazing person. And worthy to be remembered. So I'm going to show you some of my favorites. I
All right.
did quite a few. I think I did because I was working full time at Studio MDHR at this time. So I was doing this part time on the side for fun. And then I did a little bit of full time after I left MDHR. I did a bit on Green Eggs, but it was kind of on and off. So it was one of those little fun projects to do.
Yeah.
So here is Sam and Pam. I don't know if you'll hear the sound, but I hope so.
Sweet barrel roll, Mom. Mom, I really like saying that. Mom.
Yeah, so there it is.
Sweet barrel roll, Mom. Mom, I really like saying that. Mom.
Yes, Sam is a great character to animate. He's
Yeah.
absolutely awesome. I got to do a lot of Ebi as well and a lot of Luca towards the end. So I'm going to show 2 scenes from that, and then I'll show you my favorite scene where I got to animate Guy, who's pretty hard to animate. He's the hardest I find to keep on model. So let me show you little Ebi who's trying to talk with. There we go.
Yes. I wanted.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I didn't see it pop up.
Okay,
All
so
right.
one
Go
more
ahead.
time.
Yep.
Yes. I wanted to tell you last night at dinner. Maybe about.
So that's little Evie trying to explain to a guy that she is in love, and
Yeah.
she's having a hard time trying to let him know about it because she ran away from home to be with this guy, and so like
My fun is. I lost it. But how did you know? My fun is. I lost it. But how did you know?
Anyway, so then Guy gets distracted because he realizes that Evie hadn't eaten dinner, and his Evie's mom is going to kill him if he doesn't feed her. So he's rushing around trying to prepare her dinner while trying to talk to her, and he completely is not listening. And she's trying to let him know that the Ukes aren't bad because she fell in love with the Ukes. It's a very Romeo and Juliet kind of like story where there's the Zooks and the Ukes and they're feuding and there's a wall between them, and she went across the wall and she fell in love with Luca. So she's trying to let him know that the Ukes aren't bad. And he is having none of it. And so this is the last shot in that sequence, which is my absolute favorite. So I'm going to show you that from Green Eggs.
Okay.
Here we go.
What are you talking about? They're monsters.
Huh.
Right, Sally? What are you talking about? They're monsters. Side salad?
So he's preparing dinner and also telling her that they're monsters. She shouldn't say that. Thank you. Yeah. So it was absolutely. Oh, did he? That's awesome.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, that's John Wilcox that is tuning in there. He's been on the show before. He has met like everybody in all the field. He has artwork, and I want to go to his house one day and do a live studio shoot from there.
That's the one. Like, I would never want to live in LA just because it's too intense for me. But like the one thing I envy of all those people who got to live there is like meeting all these crazy animators and like famous people. But I did get to meet Glenn Keane and James Baxter once in my life. I went to the Annie Awards.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad it wasn't very expensive. I'm glad it looks nice. But yeah, so I went to the Annie Awards. I got nominated for an Annie for my work on CUPHEAD, and it was amazing because I was nominated as an individual, and so was Hannah Abby Hanna, who's another amazing animator who worked on CUPHEAD. He also worked on some wonderful 2D productions in the States, in LA. And Hannah won the Annie, so that was really, really exciting. But I got to go on the red carpet. I saw like Angelina Jolie from far. But I saw Glenn Keane, and of course I fangirled. And like my partner was like, "You have to go talk to him so that like one of your dreams can come true." And so I chatted with him for a little bit, and I chatted with his wife, who is absolutely lovely. And I also got the chance to meet James Baxter. So I was super excited that like at least those things happened in my life.
No, that's great. I got a couple of comments. First of all, Matt Casper's beautiful work. I love all the nuances traditional animation can convey. Whoops, hold on. I don't know. People are coming up so quick with comments here. Who is it? Two-tailed Sponge. So Sponge Fox, was that animated on paper?
So no, Green Eggs and Ham was animated in Toon Boom Harmony, mostly because there was a lot of camera work. So some traditional animators were still doing it on paper. I know I worked with Len Simon, who was my lead on Space Jam: A New Legacy, and he did Green Eggs and Ham stuff and worked on paper. But I found with all the camera moves, it was really hard to convey that to paper. So for me, it was just easier to do it in Harmony. And that's Green Eggs was the first time I started using Harmony to animate. So I gave it a go. Yeah, and then some of the other projects I'm going to show, I can show what TVPaint looks like if you guys are curious.
Yeah, give me one. I'm sorry, I just want to get to a few more comments here.
Go for it.
So he goes, I met John Wilk. I met Frank and Ollie back in '89.
I just wish I could have met them.
Will Ito, yeah. And Joe Ryan, you're so lucky. I love Glenn Keane. Glenn Keane, I will. He says, and John says, your work has a nice grace to it. You know, it's funny. You mentioned Glenn. Now I remember I've always wanted to animate my whole life, and I remember in 1989 I was 13 years old and The Little Mermaid came out, and it was Glenn's work that made me say I want to step away from funny art and really learn. When he does part of that world, that scene where Ariel reaches up and comes back down, I was like that and being a 13-year-old like boy, you would think like, oh, it's not for boys, but that idea of wanting to connect with something that you can't connect with, I think it's universal. It's universal. And that was the first time I said, I don't want to animate funny stuff. I want to be able to make move people with emotion other than just make them laugh.
I think that's what's great. Like, I think his work really does inspire to do like just beautiful, beautiful animation, to be able to do serious stuff as well as, you know, the kind of funny stuff. But I feel like you always have to be true to yourself. So, for example, one of my mentors, her name is Samantha Youssef. If you don't know her, please look her up. Her school is Studio Technique. And I learned animation. I tried to go to school, like, so I did 3 years in CEGEP for that illustration design class. And it only had, you know, one animation course really in it. And then I went straight to work. I took night classes in film animation at Concordia University. And then in my late 20s, I quit my job and went to Sheridan College here in Canada for 2 years before I quit that. And out of all those years of trying to find like different, you know, places to learn, the best animation classes I've ever gotten was through Samantha Youssef at Studio Technique. Her way of teaching 2D animation just like boggled my mind and changed everything for me. Like basically my system of how I approach 2D animation is hers. And so I always have to give her credit because I didn't invent anything. I basically just use her approach, but her approach works for me. And she does amazing emotional animation. So she worked on Baby Tarzan. She does those like moments where it's like you get the feels, you know, you want to cry, and she does it well.
That's awesome.
I make people laugh. Like I can't do that shit. Like I could try, like, you know, whenever I had like emotional shots, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. But I love the funny shots. Like I like making people laugh. So I think you have to be true to your strengths and what you're good at. And like it's nice to try everything, but if you like to make people laugh, make people laugh.
And I think that's sometimes my issue with keeping, like, I write all these animations for myself, and I tend to write humor very well. I can write emotional stuff very well too, but I can't animate it the way I want to.
Yeah.
I could capture maybe it in a single image, but I can't animate. Like I have this idea, and I'm not going to share it, but basically there's a scene where there's this old man who's just very weak, and he falls out of a chair and he hits his head on the ground, and like in my head I see everything happening like perfect, but I've tried to animate it like 6 or 7 times, and I'm like, that emotion isn't there. And I've deleted files. I'm like, it drives me crazy. So I'm like, I don't know if this will ever see the light of day, this story.
Well, then collaborate with somebody.
Yeah,
like,
I may have to.
That will fill in the gaps that you can't fill. And I think I have a pet project too that one day I wanna make. And one of my like ambitions about this project, and this is something that I don't know if you're seeing because you're a teacher, hopefully there's a new trend. But at least in video games, even in my generation, there's very, very few women. Many, many, many jobs, I would be the only woman, and then everybody else would be guys. Thankfully, in TV and film, I found it was a little bit more varied, but definitely in film, the entire old guard is all white men. And then, you know, and then maybe some younger people versus a few women, but most women were in cleanup and not very few animators. So one of my pet projects that I want to animate and like kind of direct and definitely find the right people to fill in the gaps where I can do it. But I want it to be all women. Like I want the entire short to be animated and created and designed and scored, like everything to be women or queer people, you know, like I would like that. That would be amazing, just to like give people who normally don't have a voice. So
that's great. That's great. Hold on, I got a few more comments here. So let's see. Joe Ryan says, I love the baby Tarzan scene, which they're great. I mean, I was actually talking to a coworker of mine, and to him, Tarzan's like his favorite Disney film. And
it's gorgeous. It's really
It's beautiful. And I'm like, first of all, I love Tarzan. I'm just a fan of Tarzan. But when you add Phil Collins' music to it, it really, I think that like really, to me, just makes the Tarzan movie
to me, it was like such a study in anatomy. Like, you know, it was like in order to animate Tarzan, it's not like animating the genie, you know, from Aladdin. You needed to know your anatomy. And so I'm always in awe when I watch those animations. I think it's just so gorgeous.
Speaking just of the genie in Aladdin, you said you got to meet Glenn Keane. I got to meet Eric Goldberg, which was
Well,
like
there
a
you go. One of the stars.
like I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god, I met him. I just recently met him in November down in Disney World, and I like geeked out. I was trying to be so calm, and I think he saw how nervous I was. Like, dude, you're one
I'm
of the
sure he sees it
reasons.
all the time. Like,
Yeah,
what's really funny because like obviously these are A-list famous animators, which
yeah,
like again only animators really geek out over because normal
yeah,
people wouldn't
yeah.
know. Maybe a few names are well known, but you know most of them it's animators geeking out over animators. But I had one or two moments like that because I'm
Mhm.
like D-list famous because of
Yeah,
Cuphead. But
yeah, yeah,
I was at the beer store here getting some alcohol and like some random person came up to me and told me like you're Tina, you animate a Cuphead. Oh my god. I was like, wow. I felt so like I was a star for like one moment in a
yeah.
beer store. So that was nice.
Yeah, I had a moment like that once at a Harry Potter book release, like a midnight book release. Someone knew me from a comic book convention. She's like, "I bought your books. I love your books." And I'm like, "Oh my god, yeah."
Yeah, just like soak it up, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
it
exactly. It
happens so rarely.
um anyway, let's move on. Hold on. Let's see. A small of us have had our let's say geek out animator moments. Yeah, I mean, I do that. The only other person I've ever geeked out meeting was Sergio Aragonés because he's my all-time favorite cartoonist. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes,
his work,
I'm aware.
but
Yes.
Sergio, I met him a bunch of times, and every time I was just like, just stuttering. It was anyway. Let's move on to some of your other work. So we looked at Jasper, we looked at Green Eggs and Ham. Can we look at some stuff from the Lunafon?
Sure. So
Yeah,
this is absolutely a lovely. Actually, I'm wondering if I should because I have the single clips, but I also have like just a reel of animations, and I think it'll be easier to just play it.
yeah. Play the
Um,
reel.
yeah, I'll play the reel because that way it could just like be happening in the background, and we can chat about it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the stuff that I guess I have the most experience in because I've done you know character animation for TV and for film, but I've worked most of my life in video games. So this is, you know, again, going back to kind of my roots. And what's nice, this is another, you know, video game that's going to be completely 2D animated. And it seems to be a trend, which makes me super happy. So here's Lunathon. Um, it's again a Welsh game, and the director is Ella from Drake House. And
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of like nods to Welsh like mythology and things in the game. And so I only got to animate the main character for it, but her name is Looney, and she's like a wood spirit. So obviously she looks like a cat, but she has a little like tail like a leaf.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it's a really fun little character. And I think there's two animations that I didn't put in my reel here yet. Yes, so I'll show you my two favorites after this.
Wow.
So this is you know just a bunch of attacks and runs and things, but I love her death and her respawn. So I'll show you guys that because I thought that was really cool. Yeah, so it's a lovely game. I don't know when the release date is going to be. Ella was very kind and said that I'm allowed to share share my work, which is really
Hmm.
again really lovely with indie studios that they're just so excited to have you share your stuff and get it kind of to a wider audience. Also, Drake House just released its first game called Dragon Caffi,
Okay.
Caffi, which is super cute and really adorable. And so if you like cute games and if you have like kids that like cute games, you should really give it a try. And so yeah, I'll show my two favorite animations from Lunathon. So this is Looney's death when she dies, and I really enjoy the fact that she turns back into a tree and
Yeah,
then disappears.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, so there's this one, and then her respawn is a similar concept. She kind of grows from a tree. So I'll show you guys that. And yeah, and what's really exciting is I don't know if we'll talk about more about this later, but what I'm currently working on is another 2D video game, also by an indie studio, and it's looking so cool. I'm so excited about it. So I can't share any of that yet, obviously, but it
Hmm.
is going to be great when we get a chance. So this is the respawn. I don't know if you can share that. There you
Yep.
go. So she comes
Oh,
back
that's nice.
and you know and rebirth as a tree. And there's a few of my favorite frames right here. This little
Yeah, I
pop.
like that.
I
I
really,
also like how the rebirth is faster than her death.
yes.
I like that. Is
It's supposed to be upbeat and positive, you know, like yay, she's
yeah.
back.
Yep.
So there you go.
We got a comment. Whoops, where'd it go? Got a comment here. Looney's cute. I cannot wait for it to come out. Please share some if you have the time. Listen, we're gonna be
Yes.
looking at Cuphead. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Cuphead,
We're almost there.
we're
I think
almost there.
we're getting through everything.
Yeah.
You did want me to share. I'll share one scene from Space Jam: A New Legacy if you want to see that real
Yeah,
quick.
I'd love to see a little Space Jam stuff.
Yes. So Space Jam was really funny because I was hired very, very late in production. It was almost the end, and it was kind of like a rush to the finish. So everybody was losing their minds, but I was just so happy to be there. So everybody was, you know, like tearing their hair out, and I was like, yay! So, um, I'll share my favorite shot that I got to do. My dog is making another cameo appearance.
What's your dog's name, by the way?
His name is Appa. I said I was a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, yeah.
So the giant white bison from Avatar.
Oh yeah, I know Avatar. It's
Yeah.
actually funny. I taught cartooning to it was one of the I don't know one of the creators' nieces.
Oh, lovely.
I was doing. Let me add this here to the stream.
All right. So this is my 2 seconds of fame. This is 27 walk cycles, I think.
Wow.
And it only lasts 2 seconds in the film. Took me, I think, 3 weeks. And they're all like moving in perspective, and they're all the individual characters. I got to animate Witch Hazel, which is absolutely my favorite character ever of Looney Tunes.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so that was, it just made my day. Yeah, so lots of walk cycles, a lot of walk cycles. So this is my favorite shot that I got to. Yeah, Appa's going insane in the background. I don't know what's up. I think he's upset that I'm having an interview this late at night. But he's, also for you guys who are Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, you will be happy to know that when I recall my dog, when I ask him to come to me, it's Yip Yip. So.
That's great.
Yeah, and so like in the dog park, it's great because everybody's like, come, and then the dogs are confused. They don't know who it is, whereas Appa always knows when it's him that we're calling because it's very specific.
That's great there. What, I'm sorry, just because I don't know if you said it, but was that your only scene, or did you?
No, I did a whole bunch of other ones.
Okay.
Mostly though, because again, I came on really late. I got assigned a lot of the shots that nobody wanted, which is group shots. So like crowds. I worked on the one where they're all coming off the spaceship. I worked on like a bunch of them where, you know, Bugs is kind of recalling when everybody's leaving, and so there's like a lot of crowd shots. And I also did some shots at the very end where like the world comes back to life. So yeah, it was like the dregs, the end bits, but I still got a chance to be part of it. So I was really excited to be there.
Yeah, we got. I haven't seen Space Jam 2 yet. Neither have I. I haven't had the chance, but I do like the behind the scenes. Wow, you sure know how to keep the characters. Yeah, I do a lot of bad puns.
I love puns.
Yeah. And let me ask you: you draw all this stuff. Is it hard for you to go between styles, or is it something that
No, I love it, and I'm very adaptable. And I think I like to think that's because I did realism at such an early age. That I got very good at copying, right? Like, and the way I learned how to paint also, because I didn't have any teachers, I was self-taught, is I would take master paintings that I loved and copy them. And then I wanted to learn anatomy. So I got this book, which is called Anatomy of the Great Masters. And it's just sketches from like Rembrandt, Tiepolo, Dürer, you know, like just like all these artists. And I would copy every single drawing in that book. Like I have like boxes of drawings of me as a kid copying anatomy drawings. And so I think copying was something that I started first before I developed, you know, my own thing. And so I never found it hard to adapt to a style, and I actually really enjoy it. I like when I have projects. Right now I've been freelancing for 2-3 years now. So instead of like working just for one studio, I usually have 2-3 projects on the go, and I love that. I love
Yeah.
switching between styles. When I get exhausted from one thing, I just like hop onto the other project for a fresh kind of clear slate. And then when I
Yeah.
feel, back to the other one. So I love that. I think it
Yeah.
keeps me interested.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I taught myself actually, and the reason I can draw this is the reason I can draw different styles is because when I grew up by copying off the TV, I recorded cartoons, paused them, and drew what I saw on the TV. So I was recording every Saturday morning cartoon on the planet and
Oh,
was
but
just
times
able.
of VHS.
Yeah,
We would
I
do
know.
that too. My dad would have like the job to record certain shows at certain times for us. Like he
Yeah,
had an alarm set and he would like go and record it.
and do you work from home since you're freelancing, or you go into
Yes, but
studios?
I've been working from home for almost a decade because um, Studio MDHR was remote before it was pandemic and before
Yeah.
remote was normal. So
Hmm.
I was the only animator here in Canada, but we had the background artist is in Toronto as well as Ali Morby, who does my cats. So Caitlin Russell and Ali Morby are here, but all the other animators were all over the place. So Jay Clark was in Vancouver, Hannah Abby Hanna and Dee Johnson were both in San Fran. And then Joseph Coleman was in LA, whereas the directors of Studio DHR, one of the brothers is here in Canada in Oakville, and then the other brother is in Saskatchewan, so a completely
Okay.
different part of Canada.
Canada, yeah.
And we were a remote studio to begin with, and the game got finished. And what's really funny is we met the day of launch. Like we all got flown to LA to have a launch party when CUPHEAD
Oh, that's
launched,
awesome.
and it was the first time we met each other face to face. And we had worked together for like 2 years and something, or almost
Yeah.
3 years. So yeah, no, I was working from home then.
Hmm.
And I've been working from home since. I will never go back to a studio. I hate it. I just love being at home. I love, being able to walk my dog whenever I feel that I need a break.
Yeah.
I actually work better later at night. So in the mornings, I run errands, I do a workout, I walk my dog, and then only maybe at around one-ish, I sit down and I start my work day,
Yeah.
and then
No,
I finish, late at night.
that's great. I love that schedule. When I used to work from home, I was a much more of a night worker, and I'd sleep more in the morning, and now I have whenever I get a chance at the time. But yeah, no, I think working from home is great. And when I was freelancing regularly, I did a lot of remote.
Yeah.
I actually miss it. When the pandemic happened, I was thrilled to kind of like with the homework. Although I will say this, because you've been doing this for a decade now, you said, so your dog's used to it. But my cat got really screwed up with the pandemic with me and my wife home constantly.
She's like, what the hell?
Yeah, and he didn't know what to do now. And then for a while, he would ignore me
Yeah.
because I had to go back into like into buildings and stuff, and she was still working from home. He wouldn't let me feed him anymore. He wouldn't, because he was so attached to her.
Yes, I
Eh,
know. So I think that's probably one. I don't like working in studios, but two,
mm,
as long as my dog lives and he's only 3 years old, so
yeah,
I'm gonna be working from home just because he's used to a certain schedule, and also I don't know. I think cats are more independent, but I find dogs just like
mm,
unless you have two dogs and they can keep each other company. It's just a long time to leave an animal by themselves, like
yeah,
a dog, which is a pack animal.
yeah. No,
So
I get it.
yeah,
Cats sleep a good 14 hours a day.
precisely. And
Yeah,
they're nocturnal, so it makes sense. Like you come
yeah,
home, that's when they're active. Whereas
yeah,
dogs are like humans, like
yeah.
they wanna like do stuff during the day.
And
So
they're
yeah,
also very active when you're trying to sleep, which is that's the hard part. Jumps up onto a nightstand, runs across your headboard, runs across back the other
it
way,
goes
jumps.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah. I had cats growing up,
yeah.
so
I love it. I wouldn't change it. It's just wow, you know, it's fun. Anyway, let's you want to move on to Cuphead now?
let's go to Cuphead because unfortunately, so everybody I hope who is Cuphead fans knows that DLC is coming up, and that's happening in June. But sadly, none of my animations were shown in the trailer or anything like that, so I can't reveal any of that. But I
Okay,
did work on it for 2 years, so I
okay,
have a lot of animations that I did for it. Basically, an entire level is mine. I
okay.
think one or two animations another animator did, but an entire level. So there you go. I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna show you some of my favorite animations, which I absolutely love. I have two compilations, which I really enjoy, which is my favorite attacks, I think, and then also my favorite deaths. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe I'm just morbid that way, but I love killing characters. It's like my favorite thing to do in video games. And I'm currently working on a video game which it's all 2D animated, has over 90 enemies, and I get to kill so much stuff, and it's just so much fun. So I'm going to show you guys some attacks, and then I will show some deaths, which I really love.
Okay.
So there we go.
And you guys, I will say this. I've never played the CUPHEAD game. I love video games, but ever since I worked on them in the 90s, I prefer the behind the scenes of making. I kind of stopped playing. So when all the behind the scenes of CUPHEAD came out and watching people draw and talk, I ate that stuff up.
Did you get the art book?
I have it. It's actually behind me.
Oh, great!
Reach it.
It's
Hold
so
on.
good. It was such a labor of love, that one. So
let me see. I'll show it to the screen.
Yeah, it's a good art book.
Yeah.
They did a good job. There it is.
Yep. The Art of CUPHEAD. I made sure to pick this up. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And you have work in here?
Yeah, of course.
You know your page numbers?
I don't know the page numbers, but I'm all of Baroness von Bonbon's level is in there, and you could see a lot of the run and gun levels were my work as well. So you have a lot of my concept art in there. I could show a bit of concept art. I don't know if people maybe can comment if they're interested in concept art. I could share some behind the scenes type of stuff. And so these are my favorite deaths.
Okay, let me switch that open.
I think you will like these. So I did a lot of the King Dice fight. So I killed off a lot of those like little mini bosses in the King Dice fight. This is my favorite death, I think, of all time. It's so funny. And the alcohol that's crying, I really enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
And then I have some Baroness von Bonbon animations that I can show you guys. But if you want, I could also share some of the kind of the behind the scenes concept art stuff.
Go for it. I mean, it seems we have some fans of the behind the scenes stuff watching. And I got to say, my favorite was the monkey. I love the
Really?
So
I love every single character in CUPHEAD that I did. And I animated 64 characters for CUPHEAD. I will actually show you guys, like maybe some of you who follow me know this image, but I'm gonna put it up just for a second so you guys can see. So I animated and designed most of these. I think two of them I didn't design. I didn't design Pork Rind, but I animated him. I didn't design one other one. So Pork Rind I didn't design, and Legendary Chalice, that was Dee Johnson who designed her. The Domino Death is my favorite too. And so these are all the characters, and I love most of them. The one character I fucking hate is the monkey. Like I hated animating that character. It was the shittiest character to animate. And the only animation I enjoyed was the death animation on that one, where I finally got to fucking kill him.
I just love his death scene. I thought that was like the best.
Yeah, but you felt my joy in killing him to the death because I was so excited to finally kill him. So these are all the characters I animated. You can see Baroness in there with all the her sidekicks, but then a lot of run and gun enemies that I did, and as well as mini bosses for King Dice. And then I got to animate the final Devil Death animation as well, which was lots of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you guys some concept art since everybody. I'll do one Baroness, video. Let's see.
Wow, tell us how you really feel about the monkey.
Yeah, I fucking hate that thing.
Who'd you hate?
So awful. It was like absolutely the worst. And I honestly am very happy when I animate normally. So that asshole of a monkey was just absolutely terrible.
Can I say I know you let a couple of curses slip throughout. You until you talked about that monkey, you had like the cleanest mouth.
Yeah, and then it brings out all the hate.
I was able to tell just in your voice how much you hated that.
It's absolutely horrific. No, the issue with the monkey mostly was that it was very mechanical. And so it was extremely like technical, like almost like architectural drawing instead of animation. And
I can understand. I probably would have hated it then myself.
It was awful. Okay, let's see. Share screen, and here is one of my favorites from Baroness, which is the chase. The chase
nice.
sequence, which was on a bunch of different levels. So you had the castle on one level, you had his teeth on another piece of paper, so that I could go up and down and release the kind of the mint, and then his arms were on another level, and then Baroness with her head animation was on another level. So that was a fun one.
Yeah,
it was good times.
Wow.
Yeah, so now I'll just open up a folder of concept art and just kind of go through it. Because that's always fun to watch.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I like this. He's full of puns, right? The monkey animation made Tina go ape.
Ha ha ha. Yes. Let's see. What is a good one? So this is one that not a lot of it made it. So this is probably all stuff that never got seen. So I'm going to show that.
Okay.
So I only designed a few characters for Funfair Fever. And then, but for a lot of them, I would just do a bunch of concepts. So here's some really creepy concepts for the Funfair, with a lot of like floating eyes and things, and you know, a merry-go-round and Humpty Dumpty for some reason, and then like, I don't know, just like kind of Alice in Wonderland weirdness going on.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it was a lot of weird characters.
It kind of has a little bit of the old, some of them, not everything, but some of them, at least on the other page, I think it was.
Which one? This
had no, the one before. Yeah, on here kind of reminds me a little bit of that old Warner Brothers cartoon, Porky and Wacky Land and Wackoland, or whatever it was called. I can't remember the name now.
He like smokes a cigar and then goes on an acid trip. I don't know why, but yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, so this was fun too, like wacky mirrors, like for Cuphead, like looking all different, you know, and different stuff. And yeah, so this was a really fun one. But then my other favorite series of concepts was like food. Hold on, let's see.
One of my favorites. Not always to draw, but to eat, definitely.
Yeah, so that was another really fun thing that was interesting about being assigned the Baroness level, is that, you know, they didn't know me. It was the first time that I met them, the Moldenhauer brothers, and they're like, okay, we're going to assign you this level. And it was, you know, a princess that loves candy. And I was like, fuck yes. You know, like, I love candy. I love to bake. I just love everything about this.
Oh, so we got to have a whole other show then.
Yeah, it was absolutely awesome. So these are a bunch of like cast members that didn't make it. If you could, yeah, there we go. From you know, the candy level. So a bunch of different concepts, different things that could have been there but didn't make it. So
I love this stuff.
This was yeah, also from Funfair Fever. There was a whole bunch of concepts for this. So these are all, you know, all like, although the popcorn did make it in the end. So the popcorn were chosen for like an attack that was done by Baroness.
And this was all done on paper, these sketches.
Yeah,
right?
everything. So every single drawing for Cuphead was done on paper.
So we got a comment from Sponge Fox here asking what pencils you recommend for getting clean lines like you have.
So basically I use Colorase, like non-repro blues.
Yeah.
So I use them as like a rough, and then I use just a regular HB pencil. The one that I use is Stadler, because it's like soft for some reason. I don't know why.
Hold on, I can give you the screen real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, there you go, Stadler.
HB.
So I like them. I don't know why. It's like it's less scratchy than other HB pencils. So I really like these ones. But then the secret is that I scan just at black and white, and then I up the contrast so that the blue line no longer shows up. So it's kind of like they used to do it the old Disney days with Xerox.
Yeah.
So like if you saw the original, and I think I have like archive scans. Oh, and this is like different like this is our concept that we would do, like different like attacks and like how they can look and so on. So
Yeah.
there was the hot dog as well. I like the one with the teeth. I thought it was really funny. But yeah, so basically the secret is in the scanning so that you don't see all those like rough underlines, because I am fairly messy when it comes to the way I draw. I'm
Yeah.
not very yeah, I'm not very clean. Oh, here we go. So I can actually show you what an actual drawing looks like before I do the scanning magic.
Yeah.
So it looks a lot less pretty. Here, hold on. I'm going to show you an early Baroness drawing, one of the earliest ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is what it actually looks like. So there's like a shit ton of blue lines, a lot of construction lines underneath it.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Just for me to see. I can't. Yeah, you're like me. I'm very messy. I do the same stuff.
It's messy as fuck, but then if you scan it in black and white and boost the contrast, then it looks nice and clean and lovely. So there you go.
Yeah, but no, that's gorgeous. I even experimented with comics doing that for a while, so I didn't have to ink, and I would just even raise the contrast more and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a good.
The blue lines look green. It's just the computer screen.
There's two different colors of blue that I use. One of them's a very light blue, which slightly looks green, and then there's like a darker, more indigo.
That's one I tend to draw with.
Yeah, which I use as a second layer, and then I tie down with HB and then like boost the contrast, so then it looks all clean. Actually, I think I have a work in progress series of GIFs that I can show you guys.
Okay.
Like one animation, and it goes. I don't know if this is interesting or not.
I'm sure it will be.
Some people.
Your stuff's been great so far.
So this is I did a CUPHEAD talk, which I got to show at a bunch of festivals and so on. So here is a series. I'm going to do a series of GIFs just to show it to you guys. And this is just like a beginning to end one animation. But you'll notice that the first one is super dark. And that's because I was drawing really light with blue pencil. And in order for it to come up on screen, I would have to make it a lot darker and boost the hell out of the contrast. So this is done all on like very light blue pencil, but it's just to figure out the motion. And this is the Captain Lobster from the harbor scene. And then you have my timing charts, and I have it all in between. This is still done in blue, and I'm just doing the construction lines. And then I'm doing all the kind of overlapping action afterwards. And this is in my second blue color, in the darker blue color, normally. And then this is all in dark blue. So this is not yet HB pencil, but I'm still scanning it in black and white and boosting up the contrast just to see it. And then this is HB pencil on top of all that. So you can still kind of see it like flashing in the background a little bit. And then this is the final with the water also tied down. And you can barely see all the construction lines at the very, bottom of that. But, it's all still there, like all this garbage.
Fantastic. No, but it's a lot of work, but it shows how much goes into it. I mean, I remember I'll talk with kids a lot, talk to them about animation and stuff. And for me to go through, anywhere from 3 to 6 pictures or drawings for one frame is nothing. And you're showing that you're basically doing, because you have to go back, you do all your stuff.
But what's interesting about me as an animator, though, I am slightly superhuman, and I animate at the pace of 2.5 animators. And every time I have an interview, I have to warn them. I'm like, just to warn you, I am very fast. Please don't judge other animators by my speed. I'm just not normal. Like, this is really weird. And they're like, okay, yeah. And I just did a contract last year for exactly a client in Kuwait. And their client was Egyptian. So it's really interesting how like it's become this global village where you're doing 2D animation all over the planet. And at the end, we had exit interview. And I had told them at the beginning, I just want to warn you that I'm really fast and all this stuff. And we're like, yeah. And then at the end, they're like, okay, so it was really great, but we just want to say you're fast. And I'm like, I know, I told you. I'm like, yes, you told us, but you're fast. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's funny.
So I get a lot of footage done in a short amount of time, which is good for me. I guess, can pump out a lot of animations.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I draw fast well, but I don't animate as fast as you. It seems I could draw like comics very fast. And I remember I did a video for someone, and they were watching me draw, and they were like, "You drew at the speed we would have sped it up to.
Yeah, like, yeah,
You need to
exactly.
slow down. You need to slow down and draw it again." And I'm like, "How do I?" And
No, you
it
can
didn't
just
come
like
out as good.
play it slow-mo or
Yeah,
something.
it's like it didn't. They're like it didn't. I'm like the second picture, like it didn't come out as good as the first because I'm like, yeah. Now I'm sitting here waiting and thinking
Yeah,
of
no, no.
moving. But when you're
I'm
getting that natural
flow.
flow go, you're just like,
Yeah.
and I do
I
the
just
same thing.
I just got to animate a really fun character at work, and I was just like, I was so pumped about it that like I made this animation so quickly because I was really excited. And I think
Yeah,
that's also like when you get like a high of energy, it just like,
yeah.
can really,
But
really, really go.
I will say this about my speed. It lost me work years ago.
Why?
Back in the 90s, I was fast in, drawing, computer work, whatever it is. Companies would bring me in to help them catch up on projects. But because they're like, "Oh, we need you for 3 days," but because I was so fast, I do it in a day and a half, and now I lost money because so I had to learn to slow down
No,
when I'm
I
with
did the
friends.
opposite. So I
Mm,
didn't learn to slow down because fuck everybody else. I'm good the
mm,
way I am. Uh, but now my golden rule is I don't ever work per hour. I work per footage. So
yeah,
I work per amount of work that I create,
yeah.
not how many hours it took me to do it. Because
Well,
otherwise,
when
you're getting a ridiculously good deal.
no,
So,
I know, and I'm at the point with jobs now. I just say this is how I'm being paid. But when you're being brought into a studio,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
that's one of the other reasons why I don't think I would ever work at a studio again because it's just, yeah, it's just not my, like, because I work at such a crazy pace. Like studios rarely work footage wise. It's usually with freelancers that they work footage wise, but
yeah,
most studios pay per hour, and I'm like, you're getting like two and a half animators by hiring me, and I get paid the same amount as that guy. And so yeah,
mm,
it becomes a lot better for me if I get paid by the amount of work that I create.
yeah. Well, thanks, SpongeFox. Yeah, no, and I think that's a great way to work. Um, and let me just ask, since you're so fast, do you turn clients away ever, or are you just like, "Ah, I'll do it all"?
No, I do. I become, but like again, I think it takes, as I said, I've been animating for 20 years,
Yeah.
and fairly recently, I had this like amazing realization where I was between jobs and I was looking for work, and I realized that I was interviewing the client, not the other way around. Like
Okay.
I'd be like, okay, so sell me your project. Why should I work for you? Like it's like maybe I'm not sure. You're piquing my interest just a little bit, and so I felt like such a boss. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And like it was completely a different experience than like
Yeah.
normally looking for work, is where you're like jumping through hoops trying to get them to hire you. Whereas I'm like, oh, I'll consider it. I'm not sure. So I've definitely turned a lot of
Yeah.
jobs away, and
Mm,
I've only pick and choose the ones that I'm most excited about. And a lot of them are independent small studios. So I'm currently working on 3 contracts. I'm working for 2 indie games, and I'm working for a commercial studio in New
mm,
York that does like really cool like videos for commercial work, and I really
mm,
enjoy it. So I've been doing that with them, and it like they exactly have very different styles, and sometimes very experimental animations. And then for one of the video games, I'm doing some 2D VFX, which I don't do a lot of, but I thought, why not? And I'm also doing some cutscenes for them. And then for this other studio called Petty Karma, I'm doing character animation, and it's so much fun. Like the style is awesome, the enemies are hilarious, and like it's more of a serious. I guess it's less cartoony. It's like more. I would say it's a mix of like slightly anime style mixed with Western. So it's a little bit more serious, but there are some really fun characters in there, and the personalities of the characters are really well described. So it's a lot of fun, and I got to kill a lot of stuff. So
oh, that's awesome. And you like to kill people, so
yeah,
well, characters. I won't say people. You like to kill characters.
Exactly. And I managed to not kill my partner during pandemic, so I deserve a medal for that. Because many relationships did not last. So
Yeah. No, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. It didn't, but it was it was an interesting time, and
still is,
yeah, it still is. But you know what?
unfortunately.
It was, and we're gonna end soon. But just talking about the pandemic, but things like the Space Jam movie was able to be finished
Yeah.
during that because everyone was at home. Everyone had the software. Everyone has the Cintiq. Everyone, it's not like they're in the studio was the only place they had their stuff they can work. So animation was one of the few businesses
Yeah,
that was
that didn't
able, like,
suffer. I was
yeah,
just as busy through pandemic as I was before. Actually, when pandemic started, I was still working at Studium DHR. So we were like,
mm,
well, that's weird. And we just kept we
yeah,
just kept going because we were already a remote studio. We had there was no transition period. We were just kept on working. And
yeah,
I've never been unemployed during pandemic. And I know how lucky I am to be in an industry that wasn't affected. Actually, quite the opposite. I find that it actually silver lining of the whole pandemic for people
mhm,
like me who love working from home is that studios realize that productions will complete, everybody's going to be fine if you do allow your employees the opportunity to work from home if they so wish. And
yeah,
also it kind of again opened up this kind of global mentality that they can hire animators from anywhere. And as I
yeah,
said, the studio that I'm currently working for, their concept artist is in Italy. I'm animating
mhm,
here. There's one other Canadian animator, one in Spain, and our VFX animators from the Philippines and working in the Philippines. So
yeah,
obviously there's some time issue, especially the
yeah,
Philippines guy, we 8 a.m. is 8 p.m. So we kind of have to find a way to communicate, but everything is done online. There's we're
yeah,
still a sense of community. It's really wonderful. So I
yeah,
think it kind of opened up people to this mentality that you can find great artists anywhere, and it gives more job opportunities. You don't have to move cities for an amazing job, right?
yeah,
If there's an
yeah.
amazing film happening in France and they need animators, I don't have to move to France, to be part of it. So that's great.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I do think we should wrap up only because of time right now,
Oh
but
yeah,
I
absolutely.
listen, I'm thoroughly enjoying chatting with you right now. It is fun. I could probably go for another hour talking about lots of different things that we haven't even touched upon just in the animation biz. Um, but I do have a work day that I have to go somewhere in the morning. I have a day gig I have to get to, so I need some time to make sure I get to sleep. But I want to say first off, thank you for coming on. I had
It
a
was a
great
pleasure.
time talking. Your work is amazing, you know. And what's this here? I see in a comment here, Joe Ryan says, "Please have her back. This was so rad."
I'd love to chat again. So
I'm that was my next thing. You're welcome back. And seriously, when I forgot the guy's name, when that crowdfunding goes, like,
Brian Kessinger.
right, yeah, have maybe both of you can come on or more of
Oh,
the team, just
absolutely.
talk about that stuff. I'm really, I would love to talk about this. When I started this during the pandemic because I just missed talking to artists. That's what this show was for me. Is I want to talk art. I love animation. I love comics, and I mostly talk to more like comic people because there's a lot of Kickstarters for comics I help promote, and I think that's totally cool. But animation is such a passion of mine. It was the reason I got into cartooning, the reason I started drawing was all because of animation. It's what I love to do more than anything in this world. So the more animators, more animation I could have and talk to, I just soak this stuff up, man.
I'm glad. You
It
should
is.
definitely invite all the animators to your
I
podcast.
want to get as
And
many
see,
as I can.
another good thing that came out of pandemic. So
Yeah,
silver lining, you guys, whenever we can find
exactly,
silver lining.
exactly. So, I'm gonna drop you backstage. Can you hang out a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on. Let's see. We got SpongeBob. It was fun to finally see and talk with you too. Thank you. I had a great time. And I'll see you in a moment. Thanks again for coming on.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. So, you guys, great conversation tonight. I seriously, I can go a lot longer. This was a blast for me. I love looking at the work. We didn't even touch upon like the 30s style of Cuphead that actually me and Tina talked about before we came on here. And there was stuff I wanted to chat about, but I have to cut it for time today. Her Instagram has been scrolling through the bottom throughout this entire show. Please go follow her. Her work is amazing. I love when she's posting. Um, you know, Matt Casper says, great show. I'm happy to have caught it tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, SpongeFox. Thanks, John Wilcox. Thanks, everybody. I will be back next week with with another guest. And if you guys, wherever you're watching, if it's Facebook, please like getintoon.net. If you're on YouTube, please, like, subscribe, follow all my stuff. And same thing on Twitch, guys. So I will see you next week. Thanks again for Tina for coming on. I definitely coming back. Definitely coming back. So I will I'll see you guys later. Have a great night, guys.